we'll see who comes. Hi, everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Jackie.
Hi. So I'm Jackie. Oh, no. And this is Jennifer. Jennifer and I have the Let's Talk Chapel podcast together, and we were co-authors of a bunch of books. So we've been talking ESL for how many years now? Like 15 years or 10 years? At least 10 years, I think.
No, more than that. Since
more.
I would say 15 years, like 2007, 2008 at the latest.
Oh, I love it. All right, perfect. So we are going to answer some questions that people might have about teaching English. So I hope that some people will come and join us and let us know their questions. So feel free to post a comment, everybody. And if not, I have some questions just from my YouTube channel. So the people that have been watching my YouTube channels have commented. And yeah, I thought we could discuss some of those things.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Can you see something that I can't see? Because I can really just see you.
Oh, no, that's fine. Okay, I'll tell you the what people are commenting. Maybe I can only see the comments. Just a sec, let me see.
Oh,
so this is our first time going live together. Okay, you got it. Perfect. So Azabah Productions, hello. Where are you at in the world? Let's see what they say.
Yeah.
I'm in Vancouver.
I'm in the UK, where you can see that it is freezing.
Do you not have heat in your house or what?
We do, and we have a smart meter. So I can tell you, for example, that yesterday we spent 15 pounds on heating for the day. And let me assure you, I was dressed like this because my house is freezing.
Oh no.
Like I refuse to put the heat up any higher.
Yes.
Because it's just so expensive. So it just takes the edge off.
Well, I have a small condo, and thankfully, I think my neighbors around me go hard on the heating, and I actually don't have to. So for the month, I spend about 30 Canadian dollars on electricity. So I spend about in US dollars, I probably spend about 75 cents in electricity. And that includes like the dishwasher, my washer and dryer, my heat, everything. But I don't know, we're living in luxury here in Vancouver, I guess, or at least where I live.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we have an old, drafty house, and I am very cold-natured. I'm from Louisiana. Yeah. I feel the cold very keenly. But even my husband's been wandering around wearing a sweater and slippers.
Oh, no.
But yeah, like with a smart meter, it's good because you can see, you don't get a shock bill. But on the other hand, it's like sitting in a taxi in non-moving traffic. You just watch it tick, tick, tick.
Oh, tough times. All right. So, Azabah Productions is from Vancouver as well. So hello and welcome to the live stream. So Jennifer, our first question that we have, I made a little video about this the other day, and it's Christmas related. So would you rather give gifts or experiences for Christmas? What's your opinion on this important matter?
Well, I am one of those people who tends to give gifts that I would like myself. So I am hardcore into experience gifts.
Yes.
Because I think these days, everybody gets what they want when they want it. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to buy people gifts that they actually want and or need. Mm-hmm. So yeah, experiences are great. And then you have memories. Yeah. And if you do the experiences together, then you have the memories together.
I was just going to say, I'm all about experiences. And then, of course, I join in with them on that experience. I get 2 tickets to whatever, a hockey game, or I did a cooking class last year with someone, a vegan cooking class.
Nice.
A concert, whatever. So yeah, all the things that I kind of want to go to that I think that other person will really like as well. Those are my ultimate Christmas presents. So if anyone needs an idea, those are some good ideas for you. All right. Yeah. So next one. So let's get more into teaching. So do you ever do debates with students? So I've been doing some videos lately about debate topics. And on my websites, those are two very popular pages, like just ideas for debates. So do you ever do debates, and what are some good topics that you like to talk about?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think debates are really good to get conversations going. I tend to not get into overly contentious things. I think we talked maybe in the last podcast, the one before, that I had the adult student, or maybe it was not even with you. Maybe I just had a recent conversation with somebody about it. But, I had an adult student, and he was so strongly against adoption. I thought it was a joke. Like, it was like his stance was, why would anyone ever want a child that is not their blood?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that was the first time that I thought, I'm not cut out to teach adults.
Interesting. Yes. So
Yeah,
maybe
but
that's quite a controversial topic, but there are for sure like just kind of like fun topics. So
yeah,
kind of a fun one, kind of one of my classic is like cats versus dogs. People have all sorts of opinions on which one makes the better pet, or like,
yeah.
does pineapple belong on pizza? It's very controversial. I personally love pineapple. Not everybody else does. So yeah, there's less controversial ones for sure.
Yeah, and I think like in school, like with kids, there's usually some sort of like writing an essay or something where they will be given the topic of school uniforms or video games or like smartphones or kids having phones, whatever. I think those are pretty done. Like, not that many kids are excited about school uniforms. And also, not that many kids think that there is any reason why they should not play exactly as many games on their phone that they want. So,
Yeah.
I try to lean into more things that are things that they care about, but are also things that they are likely to have diverging opinions on, you know. So, and,
Yeah,
and that
for
can
sure.
be dependent on the group of kids, kind of one of those get to know your students kind of things.
Yeah,
How
the
about
key is
you
kind
in
of having
university?
the key is having some different opinions among the class. So if you ask something that everyone obviously disagrees on, then it's like going to be the worst class. So you have to like really consider carefully your topic and your group of students and then the people. I've kind of done it like informally in my classes. I've never done, for example, like a serious debate, like formal debate with all the rules of debate and all of that with my students, but just kind of as an informal thing. Sometimes I would just ask like a question, like cats or dogs, and just see kind of what the consensus is or whatever. And then usually it's about 50-50. So I say like, okay, all the cat people put up your hand, and then find someone with their hands down, and then just quickly go, have like a little 3-minute conversation and see if you can convince the other person about why the cat is the ultimate pet or whatever, something like that. So just kind of as like a fun warm up or a little bit like an icebreaker kind of thing. So I've done
Yeah,
some of that before.
that's a great idea because you are getting them talking about something that they have an opinion about. And
Yeah.
also, you're getting them moving around and you're getting them to like, it's good for all sorts of things. You're not saying, okay, you're a cat person and you're a dog person. Now talk,
Yeah, exactly. And then even if you have like kind of uneven numbers, I just like, for if there's like 2/3 cat people, I'm like, oh, it's your lucky day. It's you can have 2 against 1 debate. Go find one dog person, and like the two of you can work together to convince that person or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of like a casual, fun activity that you can do as long as you have students who are like happy to talk to each other and moving around and kind of like at least like a little bit excited about English and don't just want to like sit in their desks and power through textbooks. So yeah, if they want to talk, then that's a fun activity to do for sure. And I enjoy it too. I like eavesdropping and kind of like interjecting as well, my opinion about stuff.
Yeah, but I think that's also a good one, even if they're not excited or if their normal inclination would be to sit quietly and
Yeah.
do their workbook activities.
Mm.
I think most students enjoy the opportunity to get up and move around a bit, even if that's the only draw of the activity.
Yes, exactly. All right, so let's move on to the next question. So someone left a comment. I was talking about teaching English, and I think I shared an activity, like I think it was dialogue substitution. And she tried it out with her online classes, and she said it didn't go super well. She just ended up like talking for a lot of the class, and it was kind of a struggle, particularly online, to get her students to interact and talk. So I'm hoping that we could just give her like a little bit of advice. I'm not sure. It's a little bit tricky online compared to real life. So do you have any thoughts about
Yeah.
that, Jennifer? What advice would you give her?
I think I'm going to put out their appeal to their competitive nature and somehow gamify, you know, who can talk for, 3 complete sentences if it comes down to something that minimal, but any way that you can try and gamify the experience, that I think can help. But yeah, I think it is difficult. If they're not using their cameras, I would encourage them to turn on their cameras, because part of it can also be that they're not getting the visual cues from the other students. And I think that the visual cues are important for everybody. It just makes it easier to talk, but especially if everyone is speaking in a second language, the visual cues are much more important, not just for knowing when it's your turn to talk, but just seeing the other person's expression, seeing their mouth. I think every little bit helps immensely. Those would be
Yeah.
a couple little tips.
I would suggest that, like, if everyone has their cameras off and nobody's really participating, everyone is probably like, cruising Amazon, or like, paying their bills, or like checking their online banking, or just whatever people do, on Facebook or whatever. So definitely that could be a big part of the problem. So yeah, saying like, turn your camera on, please. And but then, yeah, also you have to consider super carefully the activities that you do. So think like student-centered to the max. So I do that in a classroom, and maybe it's a little bit easier in that regard, but online it's also possible to design like very student-centered lessons. So think about like your students should be doing all the work, not you. You're already quite good at English, so you don't actually need the practice. So whatever you can do to get your students interacting and like working hard at English, then that's the key. So everything you put in your lesson plan, just think about it from that perspective, and I think you'll do well.
Yeah. And I would add that if they're doing these lessons from their homes, which I would assume most of them are, like, use that, show me your favorite toy if it's a kid, or, show me a picture of, your family or your pet or whatever, Generally people are more willing to talk about themselves or something that they're interested in, rather than some generic lesson topic.
100%. Yeah. People love talking about themselves and things that are like relevant to their lives. So yeah, that's another key for sure. All right, so one of the next ones. So I just did a video about the 4 different types of learning styles. So I just pulled them up here. So I'll just give a little overview of them. So the first one is visual, which means you learn by looking at something. The next one is auditory, which means you learn by hearing something. Next one is reading and writing. So these are kind of like the more traditional students. They do quite well in a regular classroom. And the last one is kinesthetic. So you learn best by doing something. So when you design a lesson, do you take these things into account?
Sort of. Those really weren't much of a consideration when I started teaching. So by the time those became a consideration, they were sort of already things that I was already doing anyway. But this kind of ties in with the last question of, well, that was sort of making it relevant to them. but also using everything that you have at your disposal to get their attention and keep their attention and draw them in and get them involved. So, it's kind of, we're gonna do a little bit of this, listening activity, and then we're gonna write about it, and then we're gonna talk about that, and now we're going to make something, whatever. It's trying to use the language in as many different ways as possible to use the same language so that something will click, and hopefully doing different things will keep their attention, because they're not going to have time to zone out.
Yeah, I would do a similar thing. I don't necessarily like write a lesson plan and like attach auditory, kinesthetic to like my activities that I design, but I try to use a variety of different activities within a single lesson. So I think overall, probably most of my lessons would hit like 3 or 4 of these learning styles quite easily. I like to do kind of like a more serious like reading or writing thing, and then I like to have students talk to each other. I give a little bit of a lecture, show like a little bit of a video. I have students stand up and do some move around activity to like interact with each other. So I think pretty naturally over the course of most of my lessons, I would actually end up doing all of these things. So it's not something I consider deeply, but it's a good thing to have kind of a framework in the back of your mind, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. It is something to be aware of. And I think that also kind of ties in with being a language learner yourself when you're teaching a language. And that can kind of remind you of what sort of activities are helpful for you. And if you're in a class with others, like what you respond to versus what the other people respond to. And also just how difficult it is, like all of those things can kind of scale back your expectations for your students.
Yes. There's a lot of barriers for our students to overcome to like actually learn English. Learning styles is kind of one of them. If a teacher is like powering on with the reading and the writing, and someone is a kinesthetic learner or whatever, it's like it's going to be tough for them for sure in that class.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question I have, it's about the bilingual method. So the bilingual method basically is like when you conduct most of your class in English, like 95%, but just the little grammar explanation or whatever is in the first language of the students. So there's some advantages. It can save time. Like obviously it's easier to explain complicated grammar concepts in the first language of the students rather than trying to explain in English. Can be not that easy. So what are your thoughts about using like a little bit of the first language in a class, or are you all about full immersion, 100% English all the way?
I am exactly what you said. The amount of time that you can save to clearly, concisely explain some of especially the weirder aspects of English, but really, I think any sort of grammar, especially if it is some sort of format that doesn't exist in the first language, whatever, like it is so much more practical just to spend a minute or 2 or 3 minutes using the first language. And then, the students are on the same page and aren't just sort of guessing what you're going on about. And then they've got perhaps a completely wrong idea of what you were even trying to explain.
It happens, yes.
Unfortunately, generally speaking, like definitely in Korea, that was a real no-go at most schools. I think very, very few schools wanted the native speaker teachers to even admit that they could understand Korean, much less use it functionally. To the extent that I had some coworkers who were, second generation. Their parents had immigrated either as children or as adults, but they spoke Korean at home in the US or Canada, but in Korea, they had to completely pretend, like on the street when they ran into parents' moms, or students' moms, whatever, like,
don't understand
I don't
you.
understand you.
It seems like a disservice, actually. Yeah, I know. It's in Korea, that was kind of the fad. The Spilingual Method, it kind of comes out of India, and that's where it's most popular, and just using, yeah, their first language to teach English. But it can be a bit confusing for the students because, like, if you use a bit of the first language and then say, okay, the rest of the class is in English. I mean, the students will say, okay, but the bad students will be like, why can't I speak Korean? You were just speaking Korean. And it's kind of this like thing. So, I mean, I kind of see both sides. I think there's advantages and disadvantages for sure,
Yeah.
but you have to be really firm about it. Like, I'm speaking in your first language right now to explain this grammar, but then for all of these speaking activities and all the rest of the things that are happening, it has to be 100% in English. And no, you can't ask me questions in English, like, or no, you can't ask me questions in the first language unless it's directly related to that grammar concept or whatever, you know? So it does require some strength, I think, especially with weaker students who are just like, oh my God, yes, they speak my first language. I'm going to like, you know, take
I
advantage
never
of
need
that
to
a little
speak
bit.
English again.
Perfect. Great. So it just
Yeah.
depends on the situation. So, but yes, it can save some time. All right. So the next, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think the school that I was with that handled it what I thought was the best balance, because they did not want any sort of non-English activity with the native speakers. The students had a separate class with a Korean English teacher, and in that class they covered grammar and rules of English and anything that needed an explanation in terms of like technical aspects of English. So it was usage and vocabulary and all that stuff was with the native speaker. So I thought that was a good way to handle it, although it did create sort of like a weird, you know, this is your time to use grammar correctly, and this is your time to speak English.
Yeah,
I don't think they actually spoke any English with the Korean English teacher.
I know, I find that a bit strange. Yeah, that's not exactly, that's like the bilingual method does not advocate like an entire class of, you know, the first language. Just because it's a grammar class doesn't mean that it should be conducted entirely in the first language. So that's kind of like a stretch from what the actual methodology says. So yes, but sometimes things get taken too far. I think. All right, so the next question, to teach slang or not to teach slang? What do you think?
Only with higher level students. Yeah. Like obviously if slang came up in reading, because most of the places that I've taught use like actual English literature, US text, you know, school textbooks, whatever, rather than interchange or books like that are for foreign language students. So slang does come up. And in those situations, I would obviously explain the vocabulary and explain what it meant, whatever. But in terms of usable slang or having slang classes or whatever, I would save that for more advanced students. Partly because if somebody doesn't speak English really well, I think it's more important to focus on the fundamentals, the basics for accurate communication. And also, like, there would just be so many ways for them to sort of get things wrong. I feel like
using slang strangely or in the wrong context or whatever, just like, oh, what are you doing? Like it's cringy a little bit, I guess, to use a slang term. Like it sounds bad. So I was kind of the same way. I would only teach my higher level stuff, and it was actually really fun. Like I love teaching kind of funny like slang expressions, you know, to students who were going to go study at a Korean or like at an American university or like do a job exchange in the US or whatever. I would try to like do my best to prepare them and make them sound like kind of, you know, like proficient in English, but also like they kind of had their like, you know, finger on the pulse of like how people are actually talking in Canada or the US. So, and it was fun. They like loved learning that stuff and loved learning it. Yeah, it was just like motivating, I guess, for them to like learn these kind of fun English terms.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they liked it.
and especially if they are going to be studying or living or working in the US or Canada, wherever, it is important for them to at least recognize some slang,
Yes.
even if they're not comfortable using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of my pet peeves was the number of students that I had to get gonna and wanna out of their written language.
Oh,
Like,
yes, yes,
who
yes.
even taught you that that is acceptable writing?
I actually was always very clear about like never write like this, like, you know, like weird kind of funny slang terms. I was like, this is never something that you write down on a piece of paper. This is just like you're chatting to your friend. You can actually say this, but that's the only only circumstance. So I would try to, you know, like use context for sure and make it clear. Like, here's the situation, you can use it. Don't use this when you talk to your boss, for
Yeah.
example, and something like that. So, all right. So the last question I have, someone was wondering whether it's possible to get a Korean university job when they're not in Korea. So, my short answer is extremely difficult. I taught in Korean universities for 10 years, and honestly, only one of my coworkers ever got hired from outside the country, and she did a like Skype interview or whatever, but she was like freakishly overqualified for the job. Like, had been teaching English at the university level for like 30 years in like 10 different countries around the world, and had like her master's in TESOL and publications and all sorts of things. So they were willing to make an exception for her, but just kind of for the average person, the short answer is no. Very difficult.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say also that the qualifications are getting higher and higher and higher that they are expecting. Like, certainly when I went to Korea and when you went to Korea, even, you know, a bachelor's, and not even necessarily a bachelor's of education or a bachelor's in English or anything, like you could get a university job somewhere. It might be some very small rural university, but you did not have to really have any particular qualifications beyond what the visa required. But those days are well in the past.
Gone. Yes.
Yeah. And from what I've seen, the pay has not gone up in years. I know certainly I see a lot more, obviously I see a lot more Hagwon jobs getting posted, but those jobs are paying less than I earned like in 2002, 2003. And they're requiring more hours, and some of them don't offer housing anymore. And some of them only offer a one-way ticket. Like at the end of your year with them, they'll give you a ticket home, but they won't pay the ticket out because they expect you to be in the country for an in-person interview.
Yeah, that's a bit tricky for sure. So yes, I think it's like the Korean wave has kind of spread over the world, and all things Korean are a little bit trendy. I think K-pop and like the Korean movies and TV and stuff like that. So I think just more and more people want to go to Korea, and yeah, as a result, the English teacher jobs are, you know, not as great as they were, and the competition level for those jobs is actually a lot higher. So it can be quite difficult to get a job in Korea when you're outside Korea, unless it's like for kind of an entry-level Hagwon job or entry-level kind of public school jobs. But the chance of finding like the ultimate job from outside Korea are slim. Usually those are passed from friend to friend to friend to friend forever, essentially. So you kind of have to be in the country and make the connections.
Yeah. And even if they're not passed from friend to friend, like I feel like a lot of the university jobs are even more competitive than that. Like you've got to have a friend who will get your CV to the right person, so you'll be in the pool of applicants. You know, it's not even a case of, oh, I've got a friend, and they're like, yay, we don't have to do a job search. You know, there's, you know, they'll have 20 people saying, I've got 12 friends, you know.
So I applied for I had 2 rounds of university jobs. So I applied for the first round, and then I worked at that university for 5 years, the one that I chose, and I applied for different jobs, and I worked at that place for 4 years or 5 years almost, I guess, 4.5 years or something like that. So I in that time, in those 2 rounds, I probably got something like 7 or 8 offers for university jobs. And I want to say maybe I'll say 7, and I think 6 of them were with friends, through friends. That's how much it ended up, being personal connection kind of thing. And I ended up taking a job in Busan that I just randomly applied through on Korea Bridge, and ended up taking that job. And that was the one job actually that I didn't know anybody, and I just kind of lucked out and somehow got the job. But yeah, it was all personal connections pretty much the whole time. So, all right, Jennifer, you're frozen a little bit. I wonder if you're still there. Oh no.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
Your video looks like you're just
I'm just taking it all in.
You're just shaking your head sadly. It's difficult to get a job in Korea, yes. Yes. All right. So, Jennifer, those are the end of my questions that I have. So, thanks to everyone for participating, and we have a couple people saying thanks so much for our videos, and yeah, we really appreciate you joining in. And I plan on doing more regular live streams, Jennifer, and I hope you'll join me again, because I feel awkward just talking by myself. I don't want to do it, so I hope that you'll join me in the future for more of these, more regularly. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. And do you have any further comments or any things you'd like to add?
I think from the questions that we got about encouraging students to talk and good topics and all that, again, just going to reiterate one more time, get to know your students, find out what they're interested in, and try to tie in those topics. Obviously with grammar, it's easier to make the topics loose than vocabulary, but even with vocabulary, you can shoehorn some stuff in, and the more you can make it relevant to your students, the more engaged they'll be, the more willing to talk. Yeah, I guess that's
100%. Wow, we have more viewers now, right when we're finishing. Hi, everybody, to the new viewers. maybe we should start at 10:30. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe we're doing it at 10 a.m. Vancouver time in the morning, but maybe that's too early for people. Okay, so we'll do 10:30 next time. So thanks to everyone who came, and sorry for the new viewers who are just joined in right now. We're just finishing up. We answered all the burning questions, but please have a look at the replay. Okay, until next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.